I'd like to talk about some of the lies we tell ourselves as business owners, because we lie to ourselves every single day. And depending on the stage of business that you're at, will depend on the type of lie that you tell yourself. So I started Mazuma when I was 23. We were the world's first subscription-based accounting service. And we were the first ever company to do this style of service, and took advice. And the first business advisor that we ever saw told us it was a terrible idea, that you couldn't rebrand accountancy, that things were done that way for a reason, and that we should just give up and follow the usual model because that works, and why would anyone change it? And also, if it was such a great idea, why hadn't anyone done it before? When you're an innovator and an entrepreneur, you're somewhat used to hearing that, and that is kind of a bit of a, like a red rag to a bull. You're like, well, I'm going to show you that I can do this. But as we go along in business, we lose that drive a little bit, because when I started the business and I was 23, I had nothing to lose. It was a blank slate. You be successful or fail. I tried. It didn't matter at that point. At day zero, everything was possible. The further along you get, the more fear you accumulate. And this fear can build up over the years unless we do something to specifically address it. And it's a little bit like being a child. When you're a toddler, when you're a baby, most fears you have to learn before you're scared of them. A spider runs out at you and scares you, maybe you're scared of spiders, or somebody is scared of snakes and therefore you're scared of snakes. You've learned that fear. You touch a hot thing and it burns because it's hot, you don't touch hot things again. And in business, we somewhat do the same. We're easily burned. We try a marketing strategy, oh, that didn't work, we'll never do that again. And we don't analyse it properly. And the more we do this, and the more we accumulate these fears as we go on, the more lies we start telling ourselves. So we start telling ourselves, oh, I could never do that because it's risky, and what if it doesn't work, and what if we don't make as much money as we hoped and we can't recover that in our budget. Or we tell ourselves things like, oh, I could never do that, I don't have time for that kind of thing, I don't have the money or the time to do this activity, I'm so busy, I don't possibly have the time to do this. We start telling ourselves that we're scared of things, and we therefore stop ourselves from being daring. It's no surprise, and it's no coincidence that as companies get larger, they tend to get less daring with advertising, they get safer in their strategies because they have more to lose. There's more riding on it. There's more stakeholders. Not only have you got your own income that you're protecting as a business owner, but maybe you've got the income of staff, you've got rent to make on office premises, you've got customers, you've got reputation. It feels like there's more to risk. And I'm not saying you have to take gigantic risks, but you have to keep that mindset. You have to keep that daring mindset and that challenging mindset, because otherwise you're going to stagnate. And then you end up being the incumbent, and then you get blown out of the water by some scrappy startup who's not scared to make a mistake and is really happy to back themselves and roll the dice. So how do we do this? One of the ways that we can do this is to, every time we catch ourselves using that sort of language, oh, I could never, or I'm too busy to, is to try and reframe it. So instead of saying, oh, I could never do that, think, well, what's stopping me doing that? And then actually go and list out all the things that might be stopping you. And when you write them down or when you go through them, maybe they're not great reasons. And maybe those reasons come from really internal barriers that you're putting up for yourself. When you say things like, oh, I haven't got time for that, reframe it to, I've chosen to prioritise X over this. And that could go for anything. Oh, I haven't got time to go to the gym. Well, no, I've chosen to prioritise watching TV over going to the gym. And that's fine, by the way. You don't have to go to the gym, but just make sure that when you say that sentence out loud, I've chosen to prioritise X over Y, that you're comfortable with being able to say that sentence. I've chosen to prioritise having a nap over reading this book. Fine, I was tired, I'm okay with that. If you're not okay with that, and that sentence makes you cringe, it means you've fallen into the trap of telling lies to yourself as a business owner. And what you need to do is go back a few steps, try to regain some of that childlike enthusiasm, and that lack of fear, and see if you can bring that back in the decisions you make as a business. Because no business continues to innovate if we get stuck in fear. Fear is the killer of innovation and progress. And running a business is scary, and it's going to be, and it's good, because fear forces us out of our comfort zones and creates innovation in spaces where it's needed. So challenge yourself. Think about reframing those sentences we say to ourselves and those limiting beliefs we have, and see if it makes a difference in your day-to-day. And stop telling yourself lies as a business owner. You're better than that.